Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm excited.
I know. And by the way, Carrie says, Happy Groundhog Day. By the way, we're wearing the same shirt.
So do you think the groundhog is a badass? He looks badass.
I mean, he's predicting stuff, so.
And he's like, he looks like he has like big chops, like sideburns. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I've reached the giddy stage of my exhaustion from last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. When you're like so tired and you're like, this could go one of two ways. Like this could go cranky or this could go giddy, right? And I'm going giddy.
Going giddy.
Yes.
Well, welcome everyone, and please let us know that you have joined us. So say hello. I know we tend to have sometimes some lurkers that are out there watching us, but not letting us know that they're here. So please let us know. And so I do see that Myra has joined us. She said, good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Yes. And so I had several people, and I was also sending it out to some people that were different in my list. And I had one person that was like, is this spam? And so I was like, no. And they were like, oh, okay. So it was funny, just the response. So, we got lots of people joining us. So
I love it.
Good morning, Lori. She says hello. Oh, we have Brenda Lees, and she's actually going to be joining us in a few weeks as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, new paces. So Paul is joining us, and so glad to see you, Paul, and excited to hear about your news that you have coming in the future. I won't say anything, but I know you have some great news. And then Stephanie, she said, finally, I'm back. Good morning.
Good morning, Steph. So good to see you.
Yeah, so everybody coming in. Looks like a combination of Facebook and LinkedIn. And then we have Jen Roberts coming in from YouTube. She says, good morning.
Good morning.
And Gail, good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Gail.
Yes. Looking forward to a project with her that we have going on the Full Sail side. So I'm super excited about that. And then we have Eric. As always, good badass morning.
I love it.
Oh, Paul gave me a smiley face.
It's like, hee. No one knows.
Oh, and then Kim, good morning to my favorite badass ladies. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you.
Yes.
Oh, I see Bruce. He said, I am back in Morning Badasses. Oh, and I see that I missed one as it was coming down. So, Sean, welcome. And so I think you are a first-time person. And so, Kate, do you want to tell those that are new how to let us know that they're new?
Yeah, put a white heart in your post to us, your comments. We love seeing and saying special hellos to those that are coming in new that have never been here before. Yes. So I love your suggestion, Sean. Yeah, Going Giddy. We should make that a new song.
Yes, I like it. And then, everyone, I'm hoping that people are starting to connect with each other. So, as you start to see faces that are regulars, connect with them, say hello.
Definitely.
The thing is to continue to build a community. And so, Sean will reach out to you and say hello and learn more about you. So welcome today. And then I have Heather. So she says, good morning. So I actually spent a weekend with Heather.
Oh, yeah.
and she was a part of the No BS tribe, and we did a weekend up at the cabin, and it was very just releasing is maybe the best word that that I can use.
Rejuvenating.
Yes, that too.
I love it. I love it. Those are like the classic spa words, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what a retreat should fucking be. Badass Friday.
Yes, I like it. And so, all right. Well, who do we have today, Kate, and how do we know them?
So we have my dear friend, Bridget Flad Daniels. So I've known Bridget for going on 12 years. So I've known Bridget for a long time. And we met in a kind of a funny way. And I'm going to just quick tell the story. I'm going to speed up so that I don't, because I really want to get to Bridget here. Okay, so here's how it worked. We, when Jen and I got together, she was dealing with kind of some homophobia in her family. And her family also had some religious kind of undertones there. And she felt like this could help them be a little more embracing if we go to church together as like a lesbian couple. And I had graduated from Marquette. I had been exposed to a lot of different religions, but I was fairly camped out in the agnostic, atheist kind of realm of the world. A little bit into like new agey stuff because my mom was like a huge hippie, new age, like we talk to the universe all the time type of thing in my house. So like instead of my brother's kind of like, you know how when your parents or something, your brother, you know, my brother's kind of like, that's foo-foo bullshit. And I kind of leaned in like, oh, I kind of like this. But anyway, she was looking for, her mom had been Baptist. So she was looking for something with some rigor around it. We called around some churches and we found a church in Wisconsin Rapids that was open and affirming. And when we called them, they said, the pastor was like, you can totally come to our church. But let me just tell you, you can stop calling around. No one else in this town will accept you guys. We're the place.
Wow.
So we're like, okay, great. So we go and I'd only been to church as a kid, really, like with my grandma or somebody, you know, but my parents didn't go to church. So I didn't really go to church often. But we walked in and we were instantly celebrities. Like everyone was like, loved us. And what we found out, it was because this adorable little congregation had gotten together like 3 or 4 years prior and had a big vote. They had all gotten together and they decided they were going to be in their faith. It was United Church of Christ, which is what Brigid is a part of. And they said, you know, we want to be open and affirming. And they had this vote. So the congregants like talked about it. And it was a big debate. Some were against it, some were for it. But they ended up as a congregation saying, yes, we want to accept and welcome gay people into our congregation. But then they didn't really have any. So it was kind of this like letdown for everyone, right? And people weren't like, oh yeah, hey, I'm gay. I mean, they had some suspicions, but like, you know, it's just not a conversation unit. And in we walk, this lesbian couple with 3 little kids, and we were celebrities. So my first exposure to church was like, I'm famous here. This is pretty fucking cool. I'm going to keep coming back.
I got to bring Bridget. Like, Bridget, go. So, like, what? You're backstage listening to all this. What are you thinking?
I love it. I love it. And so I actually hadn't heard that piece of your story before, Kate. With everything that we know about each other, the fact that that's new is just so much fun. I love, 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 love it. So the story picks up then. Jen and Kate end up moving to Milwaukee and rent a house a block from my home. Right. And we just kind of run into each other as neighbors, right?
And then we ran into each other. We didn't even know where she worked. We just kind of like liked each other as neighbors. And then it was about 6 or so months, and our kids, who had gotten really used to playing with other kids and going to Sunday school in this really progressive environment, and they also were famous, so they had this really great association with church. They were like, I want to go back. Where's Sunday school? Because they were little. They were 2, 4, and 6. The older 3 boys. So we found another church, and then we found a church that was even gayer than the church we were, way gayer, because there was and way more progressive. So, and it turned out that Brigid also worked at that church. So our destinies were, and the church, crazy thing was, how many miles away from where we lived, Brigid?
Like, oh gosh, it was not. In the scope of cities, I mean, it wasn't near.
No, it was like,
the other side of town,
20 minutes away from where it was in the same city, but we were in opposite neighborhoods, completely opposite neighborhoods. Brigid and I were in a very urban location, in the inner city-ish, and the church was on the lake right near Whitefish Bay, if you're familiar with Milwaukee. So
yeah. A block off Lake Drive. I mean, shishi.
Yeah.
Very, very shishi.
So I want to go back to your story. So how amazing is it that you went to a church and that first feeling of acceptance and love?
Right.
Isn't that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
I love that, because that, to me, you said, like, before you did this, and I didn't realize this about you, because ever since I've known you, you have, you're like, yeah, I have a church, and, all of that. So I actually never knew that you were agnostic and sort of maybe on the atheist side of the house, because that's how I felt for the longest time as well. Yeah. And it wasn't until I, figured things out further for myself that I feel like I found source. I felt divine. So Brigid, I mean, when you hear stories like that, how does that make you feel, being, a reverend of this church?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting that, I mean, one of the things that I do when I train and teach people, particularly around child and youth ministry, I tell them that our prime directive is to do no harm, to not set up barriers in people's lives that will, it's so common that people in their well, at various stages in life, aren't part of a religious or spiritual community. What I would usually tell folks that I'm training is, our job is to make sure that there doesn't end up being a barrier when this person is moved to try to find what's deeper or whatnot. So the fact that Kate didn't have a barrier to begin with is so exciting. Mm-hmm. I have so many. It's interesting, because the church that I serve, actually the last 2 churches that I've served, have been open and affirming. We do have any number of LGBTQ Two-Spirit folk who will come to us, find just a place where they can just breathe and be themselves. But what I'm most fascinated by is when they bring their parents with them. And so often the parents end up weeping.
Yeah.
Because for so long their kids had been rejected, or they, as parents, had to hide who their kids were from their spiritual community. So just all of that is what kind of effervesces up in me as I hear Kate's story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love that. And so Lori says, I love that, LGBTQ Two-Spirit folks. And so I love that. I've actually never heard it said that way. So
yeah, it's a very loving term, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That to me just means so much, because we hear so many times, and this, we're like going off like we have this whole thing planned, but I feel like this is important to really talk about. So many times people have felt rejection from religion.
Right.
And that's not the purpose. Like that really is pushing people away from being able to find so much more beauty and love within themselves, within others. So what you're doing is just amazing. I mean, that's like the best introduction I think we could have ever have done to you, Bridget. But before we like start to move on, is what other things do you want people to understand about what it is, who you are, what it is you do?
Well, I think there's a little bit more to Kate's and my story than than this. So when Kate and Sarah and I were prepping a little bit, Kate, you said that we're family, and so it's. I know that Jenna was on early and one of your early episodes. My family are the folk for whom Jenna carried the surrogate baby that she had. And so
back up, explain that, because I don't think everybody understands what that is.
Sure, of course. So Kate's wife, Jenna, oh gosh, this is such a I'm gonna go way back. So Kate and Jenna and the kids become active at the church where I was the associate pastor. We had a rich and meaningful time with that. I end up being called to a church in Green Bay. Jenna was very upset. She
stopped going to church.
She stopped going to church, yes. But and for a while she'd vowed that she was going to come here, but it's a long drive.
It's an hour and a half away.
It's an hour and a half away. Right as I was searching for a new call, I met the man who is now my husband. We called each other unicorns because we were both over 40, never married, no kids, no tattoos, no trucks. So I mean, like we were completely like those people aren't out there, right? We were needles in haystacks. So, but we're in our 40s. I had never, on our second date, he asked me if I wanted kids. Nothing like moving the needle forward, right?
Right.
And my answer was, it all depends on who I connect with.
Right.
That I know that if I am in relationship with someone who is, for whom that isn't a real yearning, or for whom I wouldn't want to parent, that my life will be deep and meaningful and rich no matter what. But if I connect myself to someone who I think would be that it would be good for me to parent with, that could be phenomenal. Well, so he and I end up really just, our lives were destined to be together. We're a tremendous team together. It's a phenomenal relationship. And so even as a pastor, our equivalent of a bishop was not pleased to hear about the fact that even as we were getting engaged, we were trying to get pregnant. Because I'm in my 40s, I mean, so we tried everything known to humanity to try to have a child ourselves. That didn't work out. With Jenna and Kate and I having such a close bond, Jenna just one day randomly hanging out in our kitchen said, I'd have a baby for you. And I just brushed it off. And, sure. That's very sweet. But if you've met Jenna, she kept offering.
She's like, no, I want to do this.
And she really, like, she and Kate did some soul searching and had some really deep conversations themselves, and said, yeah, I think this could be really meaningful. I was probably way more hesitant than them, because it's scary to receive in that way. That the generosity is mind blowing, and yet all of the fertility interventions that we were working with kept failing. It's someday we can do a whole episode on fertility, because of the psychospiritual devastation of your body monthly not doing what you want it to is huge. But as the interventions, as the timeline kept going on, and I wasn't getting pregnant, Scott and I decided to try everything that we could. And so we worked with an adoption agency, and Jen and Kate offered again, and we said, all right, let's try this. And so fast forward, because I know that this was not what we advertised as our topic today. Jenna did end up being the first of our attempts to have a child that actually did come to fruition. So Jenna wins. So she carried our baby, and who's now almost 4, and who's the love of Scott's in my life. She's absolutely just a tremendous little pumpkin. So we really are family. People often ask how it works, the dynamic works with Jen and Kate now and their family. We use auntie and cousin language with their family. And Josie's just now starting to come to a real basic understanding of babies and whatnot. And so already we talk about the fact that Auntie Jenna grew you in her belly because Mama's was too old. And so when people talk about, you grew in your mommy's belly, she corrects them. No, Auntie Jenna's. So yeah. So long story, but it's a really, really rich experience too, and that's just Kate's and my connection.
I love that.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a long journey, and then we ended up, because we started it, I think, in 2018, right? And then we ended it in 2020. So it took a while, and we had some really amazing experiences with the birth as well, because it was in the thick of 2020. But we'll talk about it another time.
Yeah, that was the mid depth of COVID. Came this shining star.
Yeah.
So I was just pulling up some of the other comments. Carrie said, "Whoa, no tattoos." I have no tattoos as well. So welcome to the club. Kate has all of ours.
Yes. Yeah. Jenna and Kate have gotten my allotment.
Exactly.
So we know already a little bit about who you are right now. If you want to, what I want to get to, the question I want to ask is, what your childhood was like to kind of, mold you into who you are now. But if you feel, like you need to reintroduce yourself a little bit, feel free.
Oh, thanks. So, Kate and Sarah introduced me. I'm the Reverend Bridget Flad Daniels. I'm the senior pastor of Union Congregational United Church of Christ in downtown Green Bay. It's the longest continually meeting congregation in the state of Wisconsin, founded in 1836. the way that I end up finding myself to that, and my 4-year-old is now knocking on the door, so I hope I'm recording in her bedroom because this is where the Wi-Fi is best. So I have myself locked in her bedroom. I hope that she doesn't end up being too adamant about getting in.
We can't hear her, so
Yeah, don't worry about it.
So I was raised in what I call a functional Catholic family. You know, sometimes you hear these stories of really just harsh, very mean-spirited religious families, and that was not the case for me. I grew up in a tiny little town, Fredonia, Wisconsin, population 1,437. When my brother was born when I was 13, that made it 38. You know, I mean, just a tiny little town. My folks took us to church every Sunday. As you might tell from my name, I have a bit of a religious Irish heritage, and part of the family narrative or the family lore was that part of why our religion was so important to us was that our family, our ancestors, had come to this country to escape religious persecution, and that they would rather hold on to their Catholicity and travel to this new world where they knew nothing and knew no one, rather than convert to Protestantism and stay in the land in their home, which of course is a very, very odd reading of the Irish experience in retrospect, but that was what
That was
that was the narrative. That was what the family shared. So I like I said, I grew up in this small town. I did my undergrad at St. Norbert College, which is in one of the suburbs here of Green Bay. I was doing a degree in philosophy and had a religion professor who needed to, she was finishing up her PhD on martyrdom, politics, and the Salvadoran Civil War. Nothing big there, right? So Anna needed to go back to El Salvador to study or to do a little bit more research. A couple of us asked if we could go along with her. She said yes. And so I spent a good chunk of my sophomore year in El Salvador, right at the end of the Salvadoran Civil War, registering people to vote and digging latrines. And what I encountered there was a people who had nothing and who had everything. We didn't meet one young man of our generation the entire time we were in El Salvador because they'd all been killed in the Civil War. And while I was at St. Norbert studying philosophy, I'm sorry, it's really, really hard. Josie, hello.
Like I want in.
Yeah, right. You know, I was at St. Norbert studying, Karl Marx and religion as the opiate of the masses. And what I encountered in El Salvador was the exact opposite. I encountered a people for whom their faith, and in this case, particularly their Christian faith, was what was giving them the spark to advocate for themselves and giving them the basis to be able to really fight for justice and for their humanity. It was really at the height of what's called liberation theology. And so I came back to Wisconsin, went back to college, took a degree took a job in campus ministry, and really felt called to pursue a vocation. but coming up in the Roman Catholic tradition, and those of you who aren't familiar with it, they do not ordain women. And so I was great friends with a Catholic priest on campus, Father John. He and I probably drank more coffee than God's ever had, as he and I discussed what I should do. Do I pursue this vocation or not? And do I pursue it in the tradition of my heritage? So, that's why it's interesting that my family's Irish roots and that story is important. And Father John was this great big Buddha of a priest, and really had that demeanor as well. He was so gentle, so calming and peaceful. And one day he just slammed his coffee cup down on the table and he said, "Damn it, Bridget, you're going to change the church from the inside or the outside. You decide which one."
Wow.
And so with that, I applied to Catholic seminary. I did the same degree that a man would do if he was going to be a priest. I got to do all of the acting as we were practicing confession. And let me tell you the stories I could come up with. It was so much fun. And then I took a couple of different positions as a full-time layperson on Catholic church staffs in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. Had a really great experience of that, but kept feeling called to preach. And the Roman Catholic tradition does not allow that for people who are not ordained, and they don't ordain women. So, that rabbit hole ends up, playing itself out. So one of the things that I noticed as I was on Catholic church staffs, I looked around to my colleagues, my other female lay colleagues, and saw that the women a generation older than me were all incredibly bitter. Incredibly bitter. They had been so hopeful after the church reforms of the 1960s that things were going to progress and open up, and things were sliding backwards as far as particularly around women's issues, but also around LGBT issues and any number of things. And so at that same time, the Catholic Church, the Vatican made a pronouncement that they weren't going to allow gays in seminaries any longer. Mm-hmm. And I had always had been an ally, or since college, since I understood what that would be. I'd been an ally. And so I finally just, it was my discomfort in this system really just kept coming. It was becoming stronger and stronger. I went on a retreat, an ecumenical retreat, and there was a woman who I told that story to about Father John, and you'll change the church from the inside or the outside. You decide which one. And she just cocked her head and she looked at me and she said, but Bridget, we're all inside the church. And you could have knocked me over with a feather. I'm like, oh my word. Yeah. All of these other traditions are inside too. And I'm embarrassed to say that was news to me. And I looked at all of the things that had been most meaningful in the decade that I'd been serving. And, it was sitting with a depressed teenager and helping them find a way to get out of bed. It was walking with families after the loss of a child, and finding, just a way to live again. And those things weren't tradition dependent. They weren't denominationally dependent. At the same time, well, yeah, there are too many pieces here. Sorry, I have to edit. So I discerned what tradition would fit me best. I ended up finding the United Church of Christ, and did the requirements to be ordained in the UCC. Ended up there were any number of things that I was found that I would need in a new tradition. Most of the main line ticked those boxes, and so decided that I needed to pray with the communities to see where the good fit was. Ended up at the church where Kate and I had that our overlap, our time together. And the very first Sunday I'm there, the person who's preaching said that a lot of times people ask what kind of a church this is. And the way that I describe it is that we're a dirty hands church. And what he meant by that is that the United Church of Christ sees what's going on in the world, sees the struggles and the heartbreak and the messiness, and rolls up their sleeves and gets their hands into the mess. We actually work to try to do something about the pain and the mess and the struggle and the heartbreak. I'm like, these are my people.
I found them.
Yes. And so, again, I've rambled. So the question I think was, how do I find myself here? And I think that's a
yes,
decent nugget.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you. I love the story. I love the I love the context, and I think so many people, have that experienced Catholicism, but then find themselves leaning more towards, a progressive mindset or an open-minded mindset, have this like baggage around it, right? I remember at a point we could call them or sometimes people will refer to them as recovering Catholics, like a recovering alcoholic, but a recovering Catholic, and there's this baggage there. But I think what you're really describing is the road you take, and how you get there when you're feeling like, you're up against a challenge that is bigger than you could have imagined, right? Like, so you feel yourself needing to go a certain direction, and, you got to figure out how to get around that huge rock in front of you.
Absolutely. One of the things that I'll often reflect is that I figured out that I could, if one's calling is your deepest purpose, or there's a phrase sometimes that your calling is where your deepest passions meet the needs of the world. I figured out that I could live my calling in a place that was healthy for me.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that it really isn't what you're truly called to until you can find that integration of both the what it is, but also the context.
Right.
And going back to the whole fact that, Scott and I didn't meet until our 40s and didn't connect there. One of the things that I have been has been so much part of my ethos the whole way through my life is that I'm not going to settle for one or the other. It needed to be both the right person and the right time. It needed to be the right tradition and a place that is healthy for me. And that integration, I think, is one of the things that so often we end up settling for pretty close, or we will work with form or function. But when we can really access both, it makes for something extraordinary.
Yeah, I love that, Bridget, because you and I know each other. We've been involved in some pretty intimate things, right? Situations. Having a baby together is pretty intimate, right? So, but it didn't occur to me until this fucking moment. Like, I always loved you. I always thought you were a badass. There's so many badass moments in your story. But fuck if you aren't like really, really good at loving yourself. And I so admire that and didn't really see all angles of that until this moment. But you matter, right? You told yourself at a point when a lot of young females or young others, right, finding themselves in a situation of being the other instead of a part of the majority. You rose up and you fucking kicked back, and I love that.
Yeah. And Kate, I think that ends up being, that's so much. Kate asked me to be a guest on the podcast in December. So she asked me in November if I could. And I mean, okay, I kind of have to say yes to just about anything Kate asks me because her family gave me a baby.
Yep.
Okay?
How it works.
It's not how it works, but I feel like you gave me a baby. I'm going to try to be generous, right? But December as a pastor would have just been, I was this close to my breaking point, and I said, my answer is no right now because I'm so stressed. Can I get back to you in a day or 5? Because I want to say yes, but I have. And then I came back and said, you know what? It's just not. How about February? And that's the part of that is the willingness to love yourself and to say, as much as my priority is to be generous, that wouldn't be loving to me.
Yes. Right. Never mind. It was kind of a shithead thing for me to do to ask you that. But only because I know how busy you are. But I also was like, she's got such amazing insight around it during this time of year. So, but I knew you would tell me no if you couldn't, which you did.
I did. Yeah.
I will also say that we have many running jokes because the 4 of us have great senses of humor. And one of the running jokes is that Jenna would see something, like when one of your close friends is having a baby, she would see all the time, and Jenna's a very baby driven person. She loves babies. So we'd be like out shopping. She's pregnant with Bridget's baby. And she'd be like, oh my God, I want to buy that for Bridget. I was like, I'm a generous person too, but you're carrying the baby. We don't have to buy anyone gifts. Like, you are the gift. When we
are the gift.
When we went to the baptism, I was like, a small gift for Bridget, not the baby. Because we gave the baby, like the baby exists because of us.
Right.
We still buy presents all the time, but
they do. They're incredibly generous. So that does bring up one of Kate's and my favorite stories, though.
Yes.
So I joked that I outsourced so much of my pregnancy, so I made sure that I was at every doctor's appointment, all of this. Usually Scott would come along as well. Kate would be working, but one day Scott wasn't able to join us, so it was just Jenna and me. I took her out to get a little bit of food afterwards, and we were sitting at, kind of like a lunch counter kind of thing. So the staff of the restaurant were very close, within earshot the whole time. Jenna at one point noted that how different this pregnancy had been for her than the other three three children that she had carried. And without missing a beat, you could tell that the staff person at the lunch counter was like listening in, right, like wanting to hear this. I just, without missing a beat, I say, well, that's because you've never been pregnant with my husband's baby before. And I'm really surprised they didn't drop the stack of plates that they were putting away. It's just like, yeah. So we had a lot of fun with it.
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious. I would have paid to be around just to like hear people in the background later on. Like, did you hear what she said?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just imagining the stories that are going through their heads.
Right. Right.
Oh,
And yes, exactly. So wonderful.
Too fun. But so some of what I know that we talked about, or part of the title of our conversation today was about deconstruction, and part of what the story that I've already shared, I hope kind of gets at a little bit, is laying down those things that really aren't sacred, setting aside, being willing to set aside the societal expectations, the norms that we receive in order to live authentically. There's a great I did a course with Brene Brown probably about 10 years ago now, and the mantra that I picked up from that was, I will choose short-term discomfort over long-term what was the last word, long-term resentment. I will choose short-term discomfort over long-term resentment. And so so often we do things or say things because we don't want to hurt someone, we don't want to displease someone, we don't want to let somebody down, we don't want to say no to the person who gave you a baby. And yet the long-term resentment doesn't serve us.
Do you want to go quickly? Just
No. She's good. It's, again, this is
Scott's with her, right?
Yeah. She's not just locked out in the hallway alone. My husband's with her, so.
That's funny.
He's just like, I
love what you're saying. One of the things that I always say about saying no is sometimes you can also say yes without saying no, but you can say, or you can say no, but in a different way without saying no. So as an example, you can say, ultimately what you told her is, yes, I can do that in February. So you're saying yes, but you're also saying no without saying no.
Right. Again, kind of like my vocation story, we can say yes in a way that's healthy for us.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about being badass, right?
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's what it's about. That's what authenticity is, right? Yep. So one of the other things that we wanted to talk about because of the timing. So, it is the season or the festivity of Imbolc right now. And Saint Brigid. And that's how you pronounce it, if you were wondering. So, but let's talk a little bit about your namesake, because, yesterday was the feast of Saint Brigid. And right now we are in the day or two that is considered Imbolc.
Absolutely. So you'll notice my scarf. I'm wearing, it's actually my bridie. A Bach Bridie is a piece of fabric that you lay out outside on the evening of January 31 and bring it in on the morning of February 1. And then the spirit of Saint Bridget is supposed to infuse it with healing powers and properties for you to then be able to use throughout the year. And this year I laid out two, one for myself and one for Josie. The Feast of Saint Bridget is a fascinating time. It's halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, and so these quarter year markings are very much a part of some of the earth spiritualities. It was pre-Christian Ireland marked February 1 as Imbolc, and still many earth spiritualities embrace Imbolc as the time when the light is returning, and the in Ireland it's considered the first of spring, and the what has been buried within us is now starting to show life. And Saint Bridget herself is said to have straddled the pagan and Christian experience in Ireland. One of her parents was Christian, the other was pagan. She was a contemporary of Saint Patrick, and there are all sorts of different stories about her. One of my favorite prayers that is attributed to her, in it she is praying that heaven is a lake of beer and that she'll encounter Jesus and all of the saints tippling there, which cracks me up. She had this idea that one of my favorite quotes from her: "Eat no more until you have found your soul friend." And so a depth of friendship and relationship, it was really critical to her spirituality. She founded a double monastery. So it's pretty rare to have a monastery that has both women and men. In the Christian tradition, she founded one, and it's said that when she was consecrated, St. Patrick accidentally used the formula that is used to ordain priests. And so she is very often in iconography, she's depicted holding a crozier, which is the bishop's staff. But here again, the iconography and the hagiography is kind of wild. Hagiography is the term that's used for the stories of the saints. So in my favorite hagiography about her, she the very Catholic writer says, while it is dubious that Bridget was ever ordained a priest, she did make warring armies disappear to one another and turn a bathtub full of water into beer. And so we couldn't possibly imagine that God would ask her to lead people, but making people disappear, sure.
Beer, yes.
And a bathtub full.
That's so much more believable.
Right. Which one's more believable? So playing with that, one year I had a housewarming, and my my roommate and I put all of the beer in the bathtub, which ended up being a great vessel for with the ice and everything, easy peasy, until someone accidentally got locked in the bathroom. And then not only did we have that trauma of trying to figure out how to get this person out, nobody had access to beverages. It was rookie mistake.
Oh my gosh. Lori said, great learning experience. I've never heard of this before. And I can tell you that I had never heard of this until Kate came to me. She's like, hey, we want to have Bridget on after St. Bridget Day. And I was like, what is that? So my question for you is, you have, the namesake similarity. When you think about St. Bridget and yourself, what do you see as maybe what, when you reflect upon her and reflect upon yourself, what commonalities, or do you see parts of her in you, whether it's you yourself or your story?
Mm-hmm. So some of the things that I named already, I think it acts as some of the things that I find, of course, interesting and connecting in her. There's also this great story that she went to the king at the time, asking him to give her land for her monastery. He refused her, and so she said, tell you what, just give me the space that will fit under my cloak. And he, yeah, sure. And so she told 4 of the people who were with her to just pull on the 4 corners of the cloak, and it supposedly expanded to this massive scale, which was plenty of space for the monastery. And in that kind of a story, I hear of someone who looks at the current rules and the people in power and says, all right, you've got this dream, you've got this way of being, this expectation that you're going to set. I'll play along. But then still is able to get what she needs and further what she understands to be important.
Mm-hmm.
Another of the symbols that's associated with her is an acorn, and that tiny seed of something that grows into something so strong, and so that then ends up being able to, that strength ends up being able to support so much. I think is something that I really resonate with in her lore.
Yeah, I love that. And I know at the beginning we were supposed to start with a poem.
Yeah.
And we ended up going a completely different way, but we always
as we do.
Yeah, I know.
We is our way.
So we always like it when people do a gift or a talent. And one of the things that Kate has said about you time and time again is just the thing that I think, maybe Kate, you're better off saying it, but it really has to do with your storytelling. So I really loved the fact that you were also going to share a poem with us today.
Absolutely. So I picked out 2, and I hope that it doesn't end up being awful if we run over. I apologize.
We're good.
The author of both of them is this woman, Ala Renee Bozarth. She was actually one of the first women ordained an Episcopal priest. And she's also this phenomenal poet. So the first one is called Passover Remembered.
Okay.
Pack nothing. Bring only your determination to serve and your willingness to be free. Don't wait for the bread to rise. Take nourishment for the journey, but eat standing. Be ready to move at a moment's notice. Do not hesitate to leave your old ways behind. Fear, silence, submission. Only surrender to the need of the time, to love justice, to walk humbly with your God. Begin quickly, before you have time to sink back into old slavery. Set out in the dark. I will send fire to warm and encourage you. I will be with you in the fire, and I will be with you in the cloud. I will give you dreams in the desert to guide you safely home to that place you have not seen. I'm sending you into the wilderness to make a new way and to learn my ways more deeply. Some of you will be changed by weathers and wanderings that even your closest friends will have to learn your features as though for the first time. Some of you will not change at all. Some will be abandoned by your dearest loves and misunderstood by those who have known you since birth and feel abandoned by you. Some will find new friendships in unlikely faces, and old friends as faithful and true as the pillar of God's flame. Sing songs as you go, and hold close together. You may at times grow confused and lose your way. Touch each other and keep telling the stories. Make maps as you go, remembering the way back from before you were born. So you will be only the first of many waves of deliverance on the desert seas. It is the first of many beginnings, your Paschal tide. Remain true to this mystery. Pass on the whole story. Do not go back. I am with you now, and I am waiting for you.
That was lovely.
And then the other piece that I'd like to offer is Water Women by the same author. We don't want to rock the boat, you say, mistaking our new poise for something safe. We smile secretly at each other, sharing the reality that for some time we haven't been in the boat. We jumped or were pushed or fell, and some leaped overboard. Our bodies form a freedom fleet. Our dolphin grace is power. We learn and teach, and as we go, each woman sings. Each woman's hands are water wings. Some of us have become mermaids or Amazon whales and are swimming for our lives. Some of us don't know how to swim. We walk on water.
Beautiful. Thank you. Carrie asked if you could share the title of the poem. So if we could post those on either LinkedIn or Facebook afterward. They are just lovely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yes. So how I want to end sort of today's show is thinking about the journey that you went through in finding your calling. What type of insights or advice or things would you want to leave with people that are still sort of struggling in sort of expectations that they may put on themselves or other people put on them, things like that, that in sort of finding themselves and finding their true calling?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, one of my favorite quotes is, and this person uses the word God, but whether you want to talk about the divine or the sacred or substitute a word here that's meaningful for you. This woman, Edwina Gately, says, God lives 2 inches in from your belly button. And what she means by that is trust your gut. Listen to that which is deep within you. And I would say do that in conversation with a tradition. The that isn't permission to go off half-cocked and be wholly self-centered, but there's a wisdom deep within, and to listen to that.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. Honestly, that's perfect. I think I would love to close us out and kind of invite our audience. Well, thank you for being here today. I hope you enjoyed it and you're able to relish in some of the the joy and the fun that we shared in our stories, but also, you know, the amazing story that Bridget shared with us about, you know, how determined she was to find that sweet balance that we all need to find between what we are meant to do and, you know, what feels truly right for us. So I hope this fuels your Friday and you're feeling a little badass and like you know, are on your way or already there, you know, but you are on your way to finding that sweet balance of calling and meaning. So, and have a fantastic weekend all.
Thank you, Bridget, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, to our audience for joining us and sticking with us. And just a beautiful episode today. So thank you for that, Bridget.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right.